The romantic drama Queer has a lot of symbolism, most notably the presence of a centipede and a snake, and they are heavily connected to Lee, Daniel Craig, and Jean, Drew Starkey. Based on William S. Burroughs' 1985 novella of the same name and directed by Luca Guadagnino, Queer takes the audience back to the 1950s to tell the story of Lee and Jean. Queer is divided into 3 chapters and 1 epilogue, and its main setting is Mexico City, where expat Lee spends his days at bars meeting younger queer men until he sees Jean, a GI and fellow expat. Although he struggles to approach Jean at first, Lee ends up falling for Jean and they start a relationship, though it's more physical than emotional, as Jean is emotionally distant. A trip to South America together ends up being a turning point for Lee and Jean's relationship after an ayahuasca experience, during which big truths are revealed to them about themselves and their relationship. Throughout Queer, a centipede and snakes appear both in real life and in Lee's dreams, and these are all about Lee and Jean's relationship. Queer's snake represents Lee's cycle of loneliness. The snake is all about Lee's self-destruction. Queer 2024 movie Daniel Craig as Lee. Throughout Queer, some of Lee's dreams and nightmares are shown, but they begin after he sees Jean for the first time. Lee's dreams are about his lifestyle as a queer person, his friendships, and symbolic representations of his own fears and desires. The first time a snake appears in Queer is when Lee and Jean arrive at Dr. Cotter's, Leslie Manville, residence in the jungle, where they are, aggressively, greeted by a snake guarding Cotter's door. The next time a snake appears is in another of Lee's dreams, and this is the one that holds a lot of meaning. In this dream sequence, Lee is inside a dollhouse that is actually the hotel where he has had various sexual encounters with young men before meeting Jean. When Lee enters a room, he finds a snake eating its own tail, a symbol known as Ouroboros. The Ouroboros is a symbol of the eternal cycle of renewal or the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. In this particular case, however, the Ouroboros represents Lee's cycle of self-destruction, hence why the snake sheds a tear. The snake consuming itself represents Lee committing the same mistakes over and over again and being trapped in a cycle of loneliness, substance use, craving love, and being queer in a repressive world. The snake in this specific position makes it unable to move, very much like Lee after his relationship with Jean, as he remained single and died alone. Queer's centipede represents Jean leaving Lee. The centipede appears with 2 of Lee's partners. Queer 2024 movie Drew Starkey as Jean. While Lee's symbol is the snake, Jean's is the centipede, though it's not exclusive to him. The centipede first appears in the first act of Queer, when Lee meets a guy at a bar he later takes to the above-mentioned hotel. The guy is wearing a centipede necklace, and he leaves after having sex with Lee, and they never see each other again. Now, back to Lee's final dream sequence in Queer. After noticing the Ouroboros on the floor, he looks up to find Jean sitting on the bed. Jean is wearing the centipede necklace, which comes to life and begins to move. Contrary to the snake representing Lee's destructive cycle and inability to move away from that, the centipede is about how easy it is for Jean, and the other guy, to simply leave and move on. It's easier for Jean to simply walk away from Lee and his queerness, even telling Lee that he's not queer, while Lee can't escape who he is, his lifestyle, and his endless craving for love and emotional intimacy. This continues to be true at the end of Queer, with Jean leaving Mexico City with an army colonel to be his tour guide in South America and never seeing Lee again, showing he fully moved on, while Lee died alone and reminiscing about his time with Jean until his final breath. Why Lee and Jean couldn't be together in Queer. Lee and Jean's relationship wasn't meant to last. Lee and Jean weren't going to last together in Queer because they wanted different things. As mentioned above, Lee is looking for intimacy in every way, not just physical, and craves love, but when he begins a relationship with Jean, it's mostly physical, as Jean remains emotionally distant. Jean doesn't know what he wants, which leads him to play with Jean's feelings, and he doesn't live a free life as Lee does as a queer man, succumbing to social pressure against queer people. Their trip into the jungle for the ayahuasca experience ended up destroying their relationship instead of fixing it, but it was for the better as they were both living a lie, Lee believing Jean could love it, and Jean staying with Lee despite knowing he loves him and not fully identifying as queer.